Since the creation and first use of nuclear bombs in 1945 against Imperial Japan, nuclear weapons have evolved into infinitely scarier and deadlier weapons of mass destruction, capable of bringing an end to life as we know it. Here are 5 of the most insane nuclear devices ever created. Atomic cannon. Usually we think of nuclear weapons as being dropped by aircraft or as part of a warhead on an intercontinental ballistic missile. However, developments in technology allowed the nuke to be brought to cannons. The M65, affectionately known as Atomic Annie, was a towed artillery piece capable of firing a 280mm atomic warhead at a range of up to 20 miles. The initial design of the weapon was based on the German K5 railgun, a massive rail-based gun that fired a huge 240mm shell, and was used against American landing forces in Italy in 1943. Of course, the Americans had to go and make it bigger, and nuclear. The design of the cannon began in 1950 at the very start of the Cold War, and took 3 years to complete. By 1953 the cannon was ready to be tested at the Nevada test site. With a well-trained crew, the cannon could be set up and ready to fire in 15 minutes. Then it took another 15 minutes to hitch up and get out of there. The test was codenamed Grable, and resulted in a successful fire and detonation of a 15-kiloton warhead at a range of 7 miles. This, however, was the only nuclear warhead to be fired from the cannon. After the test, at least 20 cannons were produced at a cost of $800,000 per unit. The cannons were deployed around Europe and Korea as a deterrent to the threat of a Russian invasion of Europe. The cannon's life was short-lived, however, never firing in anger, and due to the missile-based warheads evolving and becoming more effective, the M65 soon became obsolete. The cannon wasn't retired until 1963. Davy Crockett. A tactical recoilless nuclear rifle may seem like a devastating weapon on the battlefield, but it left much to be desired. The weapon houses the smallest nuke ever, at 0.01 kilotons. The top range of the rifle was a measly 2.5 miles, and so the soldiers firing this weapon could be at a real risk of being irradiated by their own weapon. The weapon was introduced in 1956, and despite the drawbacks, an incredible 2,100 of the weapons were created and were deployed in the US Army way up until 1971. Early tests of the weapon proved it to have poor accuracy, and so the radiation created by the warhead was relied upon for the damage, irradiating areas on the enemy lines to make them impassable. One of the biggest supporters of the weapon was actually the West German Defense Minister, Franz Josef Strauss, in the late 50s and early 60s. He argued the weapon would allow German soldiers to be more effective if the Soviet invasion ever came into play. Even with the backing of Strauss, US and NATO commanders strongly opposed the use of this weapon, as if a Soviet invasion did take place, it would be almost impossible to resort to conflict without the use of nuclear weapons. Naturally, the nuclear weapons were of an absolute last resort for high-ranking officials, due to the sheer destructive power these weapons could cause. Brown Bunny. A key tactic in the use of nuclear weapons has been denying the enemy occupation of an area due to contamination. This was the idea behind Britain's attempt at a nuclear landmine in the 1950s. The goal of the project was to create a number of 10-kiloton nuclear mines which would be distributed around the border of Germany towards the northeast. In case of a Soviet invasion, the mines could be set off, contaminating the area and disallowing the enemy forces from entering the area. The bomb could be set off in 3 ways: a wire located 3 miles away, an 8-day timer, or an anti-tampering device. Either way, you'd have 10 seconds to get the hell out of there or risk becoming radioactive vapor. There were many problems with the ethics and the device itself. The British ordered 10 units to be placed around Germany under the alias of them being atomic power units for troops, but was shut down by the Ministry of Defense due to the risks of nuclear fallout on friendly territory. One of the most interesting problems was that during the winter, the bomb would get too cold and would disrupt the circuitry, meaning the weapon became useless. A proposed idea was to use live chickens inside the bomb itself, with enough food and water to last it a week or so. The chicken inside would keep the bomb warm enough so that it could work, but of course meant the chicken would perish. Some say it was a coincidence that the information was declassified on April the 1st. I'll let you decide. Asteroid Interceptor. A nuke designed to save the world rather than destroy it? Sounds like balls to me. But the reality is closer than you think. The threat of impending doom from asteroids is a very real threat we face, although we've been fairly lucky for the past 65 million years. It doesn't mean we won't get hit again. NASA discovered that nuclear explosions could be used to deflect an incoming asteroid due to the sheer power of a nuclear explosion. However, it has been deemed unfeasible to completely destroy an asteroid with an explosion, as it would leave hundreds of smaller chunks to ram into Earth instead. That, and we haven't got any nukes big enough to do the job. It is said the best way to go about this is a kinetic impact, basically ramming stuff into the asteroid to make it move. Another way to change an asteroid's trajectory would be to use a standoff explosion, or an explosion just off the asteroid rather than directly on top of it. The force would push the asteroid off its course and hopefully leave Earth out of the path of danger. The director of the Russian Federal Space Agency announced they were making plans to deflect the 270-meter asteroid Apophis from its trajectory. NASA believes there is a 1 in 250,000 chance of this asteroid coming into contact with Earth, so we should be okay. But it does show the possibility for the future of deflecting asteroids with nuclear explosions. Tsar Bomba. The Tsar Bomba is the biggest thermonuclear bomb ever created. Its test in 1961 remains the single biggest explosion created by humans. The bomb had a yield of 57 megatons, or 57 million tons of TNT. This is equivalent to 1,570 times the combined energy of the bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Tsar Bomba isn't a conventional atomic bomb. It is in fact a hydrogen bomb, a development of the atomic bomb. They are of course much more powerful. Atomic bombs work by splitting the nucleus of an atom. When the neutrons split, some parts of the nucleus hit other nuclei, causing a chain reaction which results in a massive explosion. A hydrogen bomb works slightly differently. It takes the heat generated from a fission bomb, or a traditional nuclear bomb that we know of, to compress a secondary explosive with the X-rays created from the fission reaction. This forces the atom's nuclei to combine to create massive nuclei, which in turn releases energy from the atoms. The high temperature of the fission explosion just before the fusion causes the fusion to be a high temperature one, and this is called thermonuclear. This causes a massive release of energy and is much more powerful than a standalone fission explosion. A hydrogen bomb has never been dropped in anger as of yet. The only two bombs to be dropped have been fission bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which caused unheard grief and destruction. The power of these weapons is unmatched. It could only take an unstable country to get hold of this technology, and we could be saying goodbye to life as we know it. So that was my 5 picks for crazy nuclear weapons which have been created. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.